welcome back. Glad you're with us. We're going to get to my friend Tony Colombo coming up here very shortly. A few more issues we still need to talk about before the day is out. But first, I want to get to my guest. He's in studio with us. He is Austin Petersen, candidate for United States Senate. In fact, just went and got your name on the ballot earlier this week. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much. Very exciting. Second place on the ballot, so keep an eye out for us.
Yeah, there you go. So you told me a minute ago, I didn't realize this. Those are just, it's like a lottery pick. Everybody puts their name in, and then that's how
you wait in
chosen.
line. There's a big bucket. You pull a number out, and whatever number you got is where you're at on the ballot.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any science to it, but didn't people used to stand in line and try to get their name first because they thought that Americans were such uneducated voters that they just picked the first name?
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, and they used to like pay people to go and wait in line for you. And so,
it's very true.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. Secretary of State actually got to give a big shout out to Ashcroft because he actually runs a pretty tight ship there. It was
That's
well
good.
Run. Yeah.
Good. Well said. So, Austin, since we've got you here, and it's kind of been the topic, I know you probably got a lot of things you want to talk about that are on your platform. Mm-hmm. This gun debate.
Yeah.
This gun debate has riled up Americans across the country, and I've stated my position on it that I think it's silly to blame the inanimate object. But let's assume you're the United States Senator from Missouri, up there having to debate this issue right now. Where are you on it?
Yeah, well, I absolutely feel for the victims of this shooting, but I also have to say that there is no tragedy, no matter how great, that justifies taking away the rights of innocent people. I've got a copy of the Constitution right here, and I think we ought to stick to it, and we ought to defend the Second Amendment. Very
good. And yeah, what they're trying to do beyond that, maybe raise the age for people to buy long rifles, put greater restrictions on who can buy, that sort of thing, with the national background check system. What about those options?
I think it's probably a mistake. I think that the real solutions don't lie in more government control. I think they lie in more freedom. I think we need to talk about letting teachers be armed, not forcing them to be armed, but perhaps encouraging them to do so. I think that we ought to be talking about getting rid of gun-free zones. If you look at the majority of these shootings, they happen in gun-free zones. Perfect example was the Batman killer, right? The guy out in Colorado. He was literally scoping out movie theaters to see if they had a sign that said no guns, and he chose the theater that said no guns outside. It's like it's an advertisement that people there won't be able to defend themselves. So that's probably really what we should be focusing on, and stop trying to appease the left by taking away our constitutional rights.
Yeah, I haven't heard Claire McCaskill really talk about this issue, but I have a pretty good idea where she's going to come down on it. She's going to. I don't know if she supports an assault weapons ban.
She does,
because she tends to run to the middle when it comes to election time.
Yeah, well, she does support an assault weapons ban. She voted for the 2013 assault weapons ban. It would not surprise me at all if she did believe in the idea of executive orders. But the guy that I'm running against, the Attorney General, who calls himself a constitutional lawyer, although Obama was one too, so we'll let you think about that. But the Attorney General on his announcement day said that he thinks that you can ban firearms accessories through executive order. He thinks we need to expand mental health screenings, which in essence, a lot of veterans that are contacting me are saying that they are afraid to seek PTSD help because they might lose their right to bear arms. I think it's fair to ask the Attorney General, what exactly is his background on guns? Does he own a gun? What's his favorite gun? Does he know much about guns? I'm sick and tired of people on the left and people on the right calling for regulations of firearms while not knowing a thing about it. Did you know that bump stocks, you can actually do that with a rubber band? I mean, that's the problem, is that we're just trying to give away these things to the left, and they're just going to want more and more.
So obviously you're talking about Josh Hawley. Is there going to be a debate? Are there debates set up? Are you guys talking about it now?
I mean, be honest. The last thing he wants to do is get into the arena with a real man and fight, because he does not want to have a debate with somebody like me. He stands to lose, obviously. I'd love to debate him. I think it would be in our best interest in Missouri. If he wants to be a public servant, he should serve and have a debate, and I'd like to see him do that. We'll call for that, but I think that we've got a few more months to show where we're standing in the field, and if he starts getting scared, I think he will.
When you were standing there waiting to come into the studio, you heard me talking about this whole tariff issue. The president brought it up this week. He wants to raise tariffs on the steel. Talks about raising tariffs on the steel industry. I don't know how quickly it'll happen. Where do you stand on issues like that?
Yeah, do you want to pay a higher price for a car? Do you want to pay more for beer? Right? Nobody likes higher prices. I think the problem is that it's sold as if it's something that's good for the people, but it's really just a giveaway to the cronies, right? It's a giveaway to steel magnates. It's a giveaway. It's crony capitalism at its worst. Nobody nobody wins in a trade war. If the Chinese want to throw rocks in their harbors, let's let them, right? Let's not turn around and throw rocks in our harbors. Essentially, all you're doing is just saying, hey, everybody's going to pay higher price for steel and aluminum. I think it's a big mistake.
Do you agree? Some of my callers earlier who are in the steel industry pointed out that, this has been going on a long time. Nobody, the problem reached critical mass, and then we signed NAFTA, which was just made the problem worse in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, here's the thing. It's nobody wants to subsidize everybody else, right? Conservatives, we don't like to subsidize everybody else's industry, right? So nobody wants to, if you want to lower the cost of abortions, right, you subsidize abortions. But we don't agree with subsidizing Planned Parenthood. Or are we for free markets? Are we for freedom? Are we for lower taxes? Or are we for the party of crony capitalism, right? I just think that the problem is that we have sold out some of our principles to the left. Even Paul Krugman, the most leftist economist you can have, doesn't believe believes in free trade, believes that it lifts people out of poverty. And Americans are going to pay the price for this. We're going to pay the price when we buy our cars. We're going to pay the price when we buy a bottle of beer. I don't know why more people aren't outraged on this. This is protectionism at its worst.
Okay, well, I know you want to go to Washington, you want to represent Missouri. Talking about Missouri issues for a minute. They're talking about moving up the vote on right to work. Because the proponents of right to work claim we're surrounded by states that do this. They've seen the impact in their states. Business is up, more businesses coming in. That's just one example of an issue that could bring more jobs to Missouri. What are some of the other things you'd like to do to help in that?
Well, I come from a union family. My father was a union organizer. My grandfather was a sheet worker, metal worker, and he was in a union as well. But they didn't think that they should be forced to pay union dues, right? I don't think anybody should be forced to join a union in order to work. You should have a right to work. So I do support that, and I know I'll lose a little support for that, but I think it's the right thing to do and say. And I support your freedom of assembly. You should be able to have a right to unionize like my father did at AT&T. Right. But if you really want to create jobs, you have to understand how the economy works. The government doesn't create jobs because at first they have to tax you, right, in order to create a job. So they're destroying one job in order to create another job. If we really want to create jobs here in the United States, we have to double down on what President Trump did when he lowered taxes. That's the first step. But you can't lower taxes and increase spending. We got to cut spending as well. We've got to get some of this bloated budget out of the way. I've always been pushing for the penny plan, right, simple across the board, 1 penny out of every federal dollar cut. We get our fiscal house in order. The problem is that we are going to set ourselves up for a fiscal crisis. We are spending $1 million a minute. We have got a $1 trillion deficit and $20 trillion in debt. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. That's what your kids and grandkids are going to be paying. And that just sets the stage for further tax increases down the line. So we've got to cut spending, and we've got to double down on more tax cuts. I think we need to extend the tax cuts that we have right now and make sure that they are permanent for the middle class.
I'm talking to Austin Petersen, who wants to be your Republican nominee for Senate in the state of Missouri. That's the greatest frustration for me when I have one of our elected officials, whether it's Matt Blunt or Roy Blunt, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the governor now, or Congresswoman Ann Wagner or Blaine Luetkemeyer, anybody I've got in the studio, my number one question is, we're in a situation now where years and years of backslapping and getting along have put us in a situation where, well, if you spend $1 on the military, you got to spend $1 on entitlements. Nobody seems to care. And the problem I think anybody faces, like you going to Washington, is you're walking into an environment where everybody's been there for 20, 30 years, and change is difficult. I mean, Donald Trump has found that out firsthand.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm running because I love my country, I love our Constitution, and I love freedom. And I'm also sick and tired of sending politicians to D.C. who can't keep their promises. I mean, the thing is, I think the problem is that we're sending people to Washington, D.C. just because they have an R after their name, right? But if you want to send somebody who is a true constitutional and fiscal conservative to Washington, D.C., who's going to stick to their guns, stick to their principles, and most importantly, keep their promises, then you got to elect somebody who's got a track record of doing that, and I'm the only one here. And I'm also the hardest working guy in this race, because I just want to tell you something right now. I've been every Lincoln days. I was at McKinley days the other day. I was the only person who showed up. I'm the hardest working guy going all over the entire state working to get Claire McCaskill out of there. She has got $9 million in the bank. She will have $30 million by this fall. Nobody who is running is going to have more money money than Claire. But if money could buy elections, Hillary would be president. So if you want somebody who can beat Claire, it's going to be the hardest working guy in the race. That's Austin Petersen.
Well, that's good, and it's good to go in there with that attitude, because when we look at 2/3 of the federal budget being non-discretionary spending, where do you that's got to be the first thing that changes, right?
Sure, but you have to be honest. Social Security is not an entitlement, right? They took the money from us in the first place, so they should have to pay it back. I do think that young people, 18 years old perhaps to 21, maybe they should get a chance to opt out, right? I've seen some proposals on the floor of Congress. It hasn't moved there yet, just yet, but a proposal for people, if they have student loans, perhaps they can forego some of their Social Security in order to pay off their student loan payments, right? There are some reasonable common sense proposals that can be made and advanced in order for us to get our fiscal house in order. But the thing is that if you are not serious, if you're not talking about entitlements, then you're not being serious. And I'm going to be putting forth a budget this summer that I think will be reasonable, that I think will be good for Americans, but that will make reasonable, sensible cuts.
Austin Petersen, you and I are on the same page when it comes to taxes.
Yeah.
If you were a king for a day, you would like a flat tax, right?
If I was king for a day, the first thing I would do is repeal the law that made me king.
Well, there you go. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. Yeah. But if you had your way, you'd like the flat tax.
I would like the flat tax. Yeah. That way, everybody pays in the same rate, right? There's no. It's not class war, right? A progressive income tax creates a class warfare situation, right? Where some people think, if you're Amazon or something, you're not paying taxes, right? They say, oh, well, you paid no federal taxes because of all the write-offs. Get rid of all of the write-offs. Get rid of all the deductions. Make it simple. One simple flat tax, 15% across the board. I actually think you'd get more revenue.
Sure.
Because the IRS, I think they put on their website that only like 29% of people actually comply with taxes, meaning only 29% of people actually pay the taxes they're supposed to pay. Probably because they don't know how to file their taxes. If it was simple, easy, flat, more people might file, which would mean that you'd actually get more revenue.
Yeah, it's good. The other big issue that it's kind of been overshadowed by the tax cut and the debate over DACA is a fix to this healthcare problem.
Right.
I have people coming to me all the time. They'll send emails to the show. My premiums went up X amount of dollars. I don't know what I'm going to do. We talked about this in the fall, and then it seems to have just fallen off the radar. Yeah. What do you want to do here?
Listen, I'm literally getting killed from our healthcare system because my health insurance twice was canceled because of Obamacare, right? It's one of the primary motivations for why I'm seeking public office is because the healthcare system has been destroyed. I'll just give you a really brief anecdote. Eye surgery. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, cost you about $15,000, right? Now it costs you about $500 to $1,000 to get the same surgery. Insurance doesn't cover it, right? So what has happened? Competition has stepped in. The marketplace has been working. The cost has come down. The quality has come up. That's what the free market does to the price of healthcare. But you have to let the free market work. You have to be able to purchase across state lines. You have to make the insurance companies compete. We've got these cartels, these pharmaceutical and insurance cartels that are running the economy right now. It's crony capitalism, just like the tariffs, right? That's corporatism, right? So we have protectionism for the healthcare industry right now. There's all sorts of different grafts in the system where these people are getting kickbacks. Claire McCaskill takes a lot of money from some of these insurance and pharmaceutical companies. We'll be talking about that a little bit later, but that's the problem. Crony capitalism, and you've got an insurance cartel.
That's another problem with running for higher office these days. You're throwing around numbers that are staggering to average people. She's going to have $30 million, you estimate, to spend on her run for the United States Senate.
Yeah, to make my life hell.
Right. And the question always gets down to, you need money to run.
Yeah.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you go line item by line item and decide who you're going to take money from and who you're not?
Oh, not necessarily, but I do research on my donors, and the reason why is because I actually call them all personally on the phone.
To talk to them,
yeah,
right.
I've made 30,000 phone calls already at this point in the campaign. We've raised quite a bit of money, actually, and like I said, I actually have twice as many donors as Josh Hawley. I've got more donors than the entire primary field combined. Just let that sink in for a moment. So these people are not people who are seeking some special interest. They're supporting me because of what I believe. Actually, I was just telling Tony Colombo there just a minute ago is that people aren't supporting Austin Petersen. They're supporting the cause of liberty. They're supporting the Constitution when they support me. So you know what you're getting if you're voting for Austin Petersen. You're supporting a set of ideals, the principles that this country was founded on. So actually somebody asked me, would you take money from the NRA? Somebody asked me if I was taking money from the NRA, and I'm like, well, it's irrelevant. If the NRA chooses to give me money, then it's because they support what I believe in. But I'm not going to be dictated to by my donors. And you know what? I've probably the only politician who's ever been on the phone with a Missouri voter and told them directly, you know what? I don't think I would be a good candidate for you. I've actually done that. I've probably done it 3 times because I could not in good conscience take their money and say I was going to do something that I couldn't do. There have been people who have asked me wild things, and I've had to say, I've got the Constitution here. I've had to say, you know what? I don't have the proper constitutional authority to do that. I don't have the power under the federal government to do that. And people don't like that answer, right? They think they want you to do this or legislate that. And if I was a less moral man, a less ethical man, I would just say, oh, sure, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then the person would forget and I'd have their vote. But I'm not running as someone else. I'm not representing, like Josh Hawley is representing Mitch McConnell and his interests. Claire McCaskill is representing Chuck Schumer's interests. I'm representing the thousands and thousands of grassroots conservatives and libertarians who just want more freedom. They don't want anything from the government. They just want liberty.
Do you support term limits?
I do, actually. That's one of the big campaign promises that I've made is I have signed a pledge with U.S. term limits to co-sponsor legislation that would limit the terms of senators to no more than 2 terms, and in the House of Representatives 3 terms. So I plan on introducing that early next year. It's
a great idea. Austin Petersen, it's great having you in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. AustinPetersen.com, is that the best website?
Yeah, AustinForSenate.com, really easy. AP for Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Good luck. We appreciate that. 314-969-9797. More to come and more of your phone calls after this.
FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7, AM 1490, and 97.1talk.com.
This is our life. This is our song.
Traffic reports at your fingertips. Real-time traffic online. Log on to 97.1talk.com for real-time traffic updates.
Brought to you by Deck and Patio Living. Make your backyard dreams come true. Call